Welcome back to the channel. If you enjoy emotional, real-life stories of betrayal and redemption, please hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Now, let me tell you a story that will make your blood boil and your heart ache all at once. I still remember the exact weight of that little velvet box in my pocket. It wasn't heavy in a physical sense, maybe a few ounces at most, but emotionally, it felt like I was carrying a boulder. I had spent 3 months of my salary on that ring. 3 months of overtime, of skipping lunches, of telling myself that every extra hour I worked would be worth it when I saw the look on her face. Her name was Sophia, and in my mind, she was everything. We had been together for 4 years, lived together for 2, and I had never been more certain of anything in my life. I had planned every detail of the proposal for 6 months. 6 months of secretly visiting jewelers, of lying about where I was going, of hiding the ring in places she would never think to look. I wanted it to be perfect. I wanted it to be memorable. I wanted to give her a story she could tell our grandchildren someday. The venue was a charity gala hosted by her father's company. It was a black-tie event held at the Grand Majestic Hotel downtown, a place with crystal chandeliers and marble floors that reflected the lights like 1,000 tiny stars. Sophia loved events like this. She loved dressing up, loved the attention, loved the way people looked at her when she walked into a room. I, on the other hand, was more of a jeans and t-shirt kind of guy, but I had put on the best tuxedo I could rent. I had gotten my hair cut, polished my shoes, and practiced my speech in front of the bathroom mirror at least 50 times. I had even coordinated with the event planner to have the orchestra play her favorite song right before I got down on one knee. Everything was set. Everything was going to be perfect. Except it wasn't. Not even close. The evening started out well enough. We arrived together, her hand in mine, and she looked absolutely stunning in a deep red gown that hugged her figure perfectly. Her dark hair was pinned up in an elegant twist, and her smile was radiant. I remember thinking that I was the luckiest man in the world. We mingled with the other guests, most of whom were her father's business associates and their spouses. They were the kind of people who talked about stock portfolios and vacation homes in the Hamptons. I smiled and nodded and made small talk, even though I felt out of place. Sophia thrived in that environment. She moved from group to group with effortless grace, laughing at jokes I didn't understand and touching people's arms as if they were old friends. I watched her from across the room and felt a swell of pride. This incredible woman was going to be my wife. Dinner was served at 8 o'clock. We sat at the head table with her parents, Richard and Pamela. Richard was a tall, silver-haired man with a commanding presence and a handshake that could crush rocks. He had built his company from nothing, or so he liked to tell people. Pamela was a polished woman in her 50s who had never had to work a day in her life. She spent her time on charity boards and tennis courts, and she had never quite approved of me. I wasn't from the right family. I didn't have the right connections. I was just a guy who worked in IT, a man with a steady job, but not a spectacular one. Sophia had defended me to her mother more times than I could count, or so she said. Looking back, I wonder if those conversations ever actually happened. After dinner, the speeches began. People toasted to Richard's latest business venture, to the success of the company, to the future. I barely listened. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. The ring box felt like it was burning a hole through my pocket. I checked my watch. The plan was to propose during the last dance of the evening, right before the orchestra played their final song. I had coordinated with the bandleader, a kind older man named Leonard, who had agreed to announce a special dedication. I had written a short speech, nothing too long or fancy, just a few sentences about how much Sophia meant to me. I had practiced it so many times that I could say it in my sleep. 9:30 came. The orchestra struck up a slow, romantic melody. Leonard stepped up to the microphone and cleared his throat. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special request this evening. A young man would like to dedicate this next song to the love of his life. The crowd murmured with curiosity. I took a deep breath and stood up. Sophia looked at me with a confused expression. "What are you doing?" she asked. I didn't answer. I walked over to the bandstand, my legs feeling like they were made of jello. The spotlight swung toward me, and suddenly every eye in the room was on me. I had never been so terrified in my entire life. But I had also never been so sure of anything. I pulled the velvet box from my pocket, got down on one knee, and opened it. The diamond caught the light and sparkled like a tiny star. The crowd let out a collective gasp of delight. I saw people pulling out their phones to record the moment. This was it. This was the moment I had been dreaming about for years. I looked up at Sophia. She was still sitting at the table, her glass of champagne halfway to her lips. Her expression was not what I had expected. There was no surprise, no joy, no tears of happiness. Instead, her face was a mask of cold, almost amused detachment. I felt a chill run down my spine, but I pushed forward. I had come too far to turn back now. Sophia, I began, my voice trembling slightly. From the moment I met you, I knew you were special. You walked into that coffee shop 4 years ago, and you smiled at me, and my entire world changed. You have made me a better man. You have challenged me, supported me, and loved me in ways I never thought possible. I want to spend the rest of my life making you as happy as you have made me. So I have to ask you this one question. You seriously expected I'd say yes? Her voice cut through the music like a knife. It wasn't loud, but it was clear, and in the stunned silence that followed, every single person in that ballroom heard it. I froze. My mind went blank. I looked up at her, still on one knee, the ring still held out in my trembling hand. She was smiling, but it wasn't a kind smile. It was the kind of smile you give when you've just told a joke and you're waiting for everyone to get the punchline. What? I managed to say. It was the only word I could form. Sophia set down her champagne glass and stood up. She smoothed the front of her red gown and looked down at me with an expression that was almost pitying. I said, you seriously expected I'd say yes? I mean, look at you. Down on your knees. Begging. It's almost pathetic. The crowd was silent. I could hear someone coughing in the back of the room. I could hear the soft rustle of fabric as people shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The orchestra had stopped playing. Leonard stood frozen by the microphone, his baton suspended in midair. I felt like I was trapped in a nightmare, the kind where you're running but you never get anywhere. Sophia, I don't understand, I whispered. We talked about this. We talked about getting married. You said you wanted to spend your life with me. She laughed. It was a short, sharp sound, like glass breaking. Oh, sweetheart. I said a lot of things. But did you really think I was going to marry someone like you? Someone who works a 9-to-5 job and rents an apartment and drives a 5-year-old car? My mother was right about you. You're sweet, I'll give you that. But sweet doesn't pay the bills. Sweet doesn't buy a house in the Hamptons. Sweet doesn't keep up with the lifestyle I'm accustomed to. I felt tears burning in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of all these people. You loved me, I said. It came out as more of a question than a statement. Loved? She tilted her head, as if considering the word. I don't know if I ever loved you. I liked you. You were convenient. You were there when I needed someone to hold my hand and tell me I was beautiful. But love? Please. Love is for fairy tales and movies. In the real world, people marry for money and status. And you, my dear, have neither. I heard someone in the crowd gasp. I heard a few scattered whispers. But I also heard something else, something that made my blood run cold. Applause. A few people in the back of the room were actually clapping. They were clapping for her. They were applauding her cruelty. I looked around and saw that most of the faces were neutral. Some were shocked, but a handful, her father's business associates, the ones who had never bothered to learn my name, were smirking. One man even raised his glass in a toast. To what? I had no idea. I stood up slowly. My knees ached from pressing into the hard floor. I closed the ring box and slipped it back into my pocket. The diamond that had sparkled so brightly just moments ago now felt like a curse. I looked at Sophia one last time. She was still smiling, still composed, still utterly untouchable. Behind her, I saw her mother, Pamela, nodding with approval. Her father, Richard, had a slight frown on his face, but he didn't say a word. He didn't defend me. He didn't tell his daughter to stop. He just sat there, silent and unmoving. Well, Sophia said, breaking the silence, I think that's my cue. I have a car waiting. She picked up her clutch purse and turned to walk away. Then she paused and looked back at me over her shoulder. Don't worry. You'll find someone eventually. Maybe someone more on your level. A cashier at the grocery store. Or a waitress. Someone who will appreciate your enthusiasm. She walked off. The crowd parted to let her through, and I watched her go. Her red gown swished against the marble floor, and she didn't look back. Not once. The applause grew louder for a moment, then faded into an awkward silence. I stood there in the middle of the ballroom, wearing a rented tuxedo, holding nothing but an empty ring box in my pocket, and feeling like the biggest fool who had ever lived. I don't remember leaving the gala. I don't remember walking through the lobby or getting into my car. The next thing I knew, I was sitting in my apartment, still in my tuxedo, staring at the wall. My phone was buzzing with notifications, text messages, social media alerts, voicemails. I didn't look at any of them. I didn't want to know what people were saying. I already knew. They were probably laughing at me, sharing the video, making memes. To them, I was just a joke, a cautionary tale about what happens when you aim too high. The ring sat on the coffee table in front of me. The diamond caught the light from the lamp, throwing tiny rainbows across the ceiling. It was beautiful. It was expensive. And it was completely useless now. I thought about returning it, but the jeweler had a no-refund policy on custom orders. I thought about selling it, but I couldn't bring myself to let it go. Not yet. That ring represented everything I had hoped for, everything I had dreamed about. And now it was just a reminder of the worst night of my life. The days that followed were a blur of misery and self-doubt. I called in sick to work for a week. I didn't answer my phone. I didn't open the blinds. I just lay on the couch, watching mindless television and feeling sorry for myself. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Sophia's face. That cold, amused smile. Those mocking words. You seriously expected I'd say yes? The question echoed in my head like a broken record. I kept asking myself the same thing. Had I been blind? Had I missed the signs? She had said she loved me. She had talked about our future together. We had picked out baby names, for heaven's sake. Had it all been a lie? My best friend, Marcus, came to check on me after 3 days. He let himself in with the spare key I had given him years ago and found me on the couch, still wearing the same sweatpants I had been in for 2 days. The apartment was a mess. Dishes piled up in the sink. Takeout containers everywhere. The ring was still on the coffee table, right where I had left it. Dude, Marcus said softly, sitting down on the edge of the couch. You look terrible. I feel terrible, I mumbled. He picked up the ring box and looked at it. You still have this thing? I don't know what to do with it. Marcus sighed and set the box back down. Look, I'm not going to say I told you so, because that would be a jerk move. But I never liked her, man. There was always something off about the way she treated you. Like you were a project she was working on, not a person she loved. I closed my eyes. Why didn't you say something? I did. Multiple times. You didn't want to hear it. You were in love. He paused. Or maybe you were in love with the idea of her. There's a difference. Marcus was right, of course. He had warned me. So had my sister, Elena. So had my mother, God rest her soul. They had all seen the red flags that I had chosen to ignore. The way Sophia would cancel plans at the last minute. The way she would criticize my clothes, my job, my friends. The way she would make little comments about how I needed to earn more money if I wanted to keep her. I had brushed it all aside, telling myself that she was just stressed, just tired, just going through a rough patch. I had made excuses for her because I didn't want to see the truth. The truth was that Sophia had never loved me. She had loved what I could do for her. And once she realized that I couldn't give her the life she wanted, she had thrown me away like a piece of trash. I'm going to help you clean this place up, Marcus said, standing up. And then we're going to talk about what comes next. You can't stay here forever, wallowing in self-pity. She's not worth it. But it hurts, I said. And it did. It hurt more than anything I had ever experienced. It was a physical pain, a tightness in my chest that made it hard to breathe. I had given Sophia everything. My time, my money, my heart. And she had stomped it into the ground in front of hundreds of people. Marcus helped me clean the apartment. It took most of the day. By the end of it, I felt slightly more human. I took a shower, shaved the stubble off my face, and put on clean clothes. Marcus ordered pizza, and we ate it on the couch while watching old action movies. It wasn't a cure, but it was a start. Over the next few weeks, I slowly began to piece my life back together. I went back to work, though I could barely focus. My coworkers had heard about what happened. The video had gone viral, of course, and most of them were kind about it. A few made jokes behind my back, but I pretended not to notice. What was I going to do? Confront them? They were right. I was a joke. I had made a fool of myself in front of the entire city, and now everyone knew it. I deleted my social media accounts. I couldn't bear to see the comments, the memes, the endless strings of laughing emojis. People I had never met were mocking my pain. They didn't know me. They didn't know my story. All they saw was a man getting humiliated, and for some reason, That was entertaining to them. I wanted to scream at them, to tell them that I was a real person with real feelings. But what good would it have done? The internet is a cruel place, and once something is out there, you can never take it back. The only thing that kept me going was the thought that I had to prove Sophia wrong. Not to her. She didn't care what I did, but to myself. I had to show myself that I wasn't the pathetic failure she had made me out to be. I had value. I had worth. I just had to find it again. I threw myself into my work. I had always been good at my job, but I had never been ambitious. I showed up, did what was required, and went home. But now I needed a distraction. I volunteered for every project, worked late nights, came in on weekends. My boss, a gruff but fair man named Mr. Henderson, noticed the change. "You've been putting in a lot of hours," he said one day. "Everything okay?" "Everything's fine," I lied. "I just want to make sure we hit our quarterly targets." He nodded slowly. "Well, I appreciate the dedication. There's a senior analyst position opening up next month. If you keep this up, I'll put your name forward." It wasn't a promise, but it was something. A goal to work toward. For the first time in weeks, I felt a tiny spark of hope. Outside of work, I started reconnecting with the people I had neglected during my relationship with Sophia. My sister, Elena, came to visit every Sunday. We would cook dinner together, just like we had when we were kids, and she would tell me about her life. Elena was a nurse, overworked and underpaid, but she had a heart of gold. She didn't lecture me about Sophia. She didn't say, "I told you so." She just listened and offered quiet support. That meant more to me than she would ever know. I also started going to therapy. It wasn't something I had ever considered before. In my family, you didn't talk about your feelings. You swallowed them and moved on. But the night of the proposal had left scars that I couldn't ignore. I would wake up in the middle of the night drenched in sweat, the sound of that applause echoing in my ears. I would flinch whenever someone laughed near me, afraid that they were laughing at me. I had become paranoid, anxious, and terrified of being vulnerable again. My therapist, Dr. Rebecca Ellis, was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense approach. "You're suffering from betrayal trauma," she explained in our first session. "It's not just the rejection. It's the public nature of it. The humiliation. The fact that someone you trusted implicitly turned on you in the most devastating way possible. It's going to take time to heal." "How much time?" I asked. She smiled gently. "That's different for everyone. But the first step is to stop blaming yourself. You didn't do anything wrong by loving someone. She did something wrong by betraying that love. It's important to separate those two things." I tried. I really did. But there was a part of me that kept whispering that I should have known. I should have seen the signs. I should have been smarter, stronger, better. Dr. Ellis called that the inner critic and said it was a common symptom of trauma. She gave me exercises to quiet that voice, breathing techniques, journaling, positive affirmations. It felt silly at first, writing down things like, "I am worthy of love," and "I deserve respect." But over time, it started to help. 2 months passed. The video of the proposal slowly faded from the public eye, replaced by newer scandals and viral sensations. People forgot about me, which was exactly what I wanted. I stopped looking over my shoulder. I stopped expecting strangers to point and laugh. I started to feel like a normal person again. The ring was still sitting in my sock drawer, hidden beneath a pile of t-shirts. I hadn't been able to bring myself to sell it or throw it away. Part of me was keeping it as a reminder of what I had survived, of how low I had been, of the lessons I had learned. Another part of me was holding on to it because I wasn't ready to let go of the dream. Even after everything, there was a small, foolish part of me that still missed Sophia. Not the real Sophia, maybe, but the Sophia I had imagined her to be. The kind, loving, supportive partner I had believed she was. That woman didn't exist, but I had loved her anyway. 3 months after the proposal, I got the promotion. Mr. Henderson called me into his office on a Friday afternoon and offered me the senior analyst position. The salary was double what I had been making. I would have my own office, a company car, and a team of junior analysts reporting to me. I almost cried when he told me. Not because of the money, though that was nice, but because it was proof that I wasn't a failure. I had worked hard, and I had earned something. No one had given it to me out of pity. No one had handed it to me because they felt sorry for what I had been through. I had earned it. I called Elena first. She screamed with joy on the other end of the line. "I'm so proud of you," she said. "I always knew you could do it." Then I called Marcus. "Time to celebrate," he said. I'm taking you out tonight. No excuses. That night, we went to a bar downtown. It was the first time I had been out socially since the proposal. I was nervous at first, scanning the crowd for familiar faces, afraid that someone would recognize me. But no one did. The people around me were just ordinary people, laughing and talking and living their lives. They didn't care about my past. They didn't know who I was. For the first time in months, I felt free. I had a few drinks, laughed at Marcus's terrible jokes, and even danced a little. It wasn't a wild night, but it was a good one. When I got home, I sat on my couch and looked around my apartment. It was clean. It was comfortable. It was mine. I had built this life for myself, and I had rebuilt it after it had been shattered. That was something to be proud of. For months after the proposal, something unexpected happened. I ran into Sophia's best friend, a woman named Chloe, at the grocery store. I was reaching for a box of cereal when I heard a familiar voice behind me. Hey. I turned around. Chloe was standing there, pushing a shopping cart. She looked different than I remembered. Thinner, more tired. Her usual perfectly styled hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she wasn't wearing any makeup. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Chloe, I said carefully. I didn't know what to say to her. She had been at the gala that night. She had been one of the people clapping. I remembered seeing her in the crowd, her hands coming together in slow, deliberate applause. The memory made my stomach turn. I know you probably don't want to talk to me, she said quickly. And I don't blame you. I wanted to say I'm sorry. For that night. For everything. I stared at her. You were clapping. She winced. I know. I was caught up in the moment. Everyone was clapping, and it was like I couldn't stop myself. I'm not proud of it. It was a horrible thing to do, and I felt terrible about it ever since. Why are you telling me this now? I asked. Did Sophia send you? No. Chloe shook her head. Sophia doesn't know I'm here. Actually, Sophia and I aren't really friends anymore. Not after what happened. I raised an eyebrow. What happened? Chloe hesitated. She looked around the aisle, as if making sure no one was listening. Then she lowered her voice. A lot has changed in the past few months. You know that guy she was always talking about? The one with the trust fund? That's who she's been seeing. Behind your back. For almost a year. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. What? His name is Harrison. He's the son of some billionaire. Sophia met him at a charity event last year. She thought he was going to marry her, give her the life she always wanted. That's why she humiliated you at the gala. She wanted to make sure everyone knew she was available. She wanted to send a message to Harrison that she was done with you. I leaned against the shelf for support. My head was spinning. She was cheating on me. For a year. Chloe nodded grimly. I'm sorry. I should have told you. I should have said something. But I was scared of losing her friendship. Stupid, right? I lost it anyway. So what happened with Harrison? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. Chloe let out a bitter laugh. He was never going to marry her. He was just using her. He had a string of girlfriends like Sophia, beautiful, ambitious, willing to do anything to get his attention. He would wine and dine them, promise them the world, and then drop them as soon as he got bored. Sophia didn't realize that until it was too late. She quit her job, you know. She was so sure Harrison was going to propose that she stopped showing up to work. They fired her. Then Harrison stopped returning her calls. Then her father found out about the affair and cut her off financially. She's been living in a tiny studio apartment for the past 2 months, and she's completely broke. I didn't know what to feel. Part of me wanted to feel vindicated. Part of me wanted to feel sorry for her. Most of me just felt numb. Why are you telling me this, Chloe? Because Sophia wants to talk to you. She's been trying to find you for weeks. She's desperate. She thinks you're the only one who can help her. I shook my head. I can't help her. I don't want to help her. She made her choices. I know, Chloe said. I told her you wouldn't want to see her. But she won't listen. She's convinced that if she can just explain herself, you'll take her back. Take her back. I almost laughed. After what she did. No. Never. Chloe nodded as if she had expected that answer. I'll tell her. But I wanted to warn you. She might try to contact you directly. Don't give in, okay? You deserve better than her. You always did. We stood there in awkward silence for a moment. Then Chloe turned and walked away, her shopping cart rattling behind her. I watched her go, my mind racing with everything she had told me. Sophia had been cheating. She had humiliated me publicly so she could chase after a man who never wanted her. And now she had lost everything. Her job, her money, her reputation. It was the kind of poetic justice that you only see in movies. But it didn't make me feel better. It just made me feel sad. Sad for the time I had wasted. Sad for the person I had loved. Sad for the way things had turned out. I finished my shopping and drove home. The whole way, I thought about what Chloe had said. Sophia was going to try to contact me. She was going to beg for forgiveness. And I had to be ready for that. I had to be strong. I had to remember that night in the ballroom, the sound of her laughter, the sting of her words. I had to remember that she had chosen to hurt me. Not by accident. Not because she was confused. She had chosen to be cruel, and she had enjoyed it. 1 week later, she showed up at my apartment. It was a Sunday afternoon. Elena had just left after our weekly dinner, and I was washing dishes in the kitchen when I heard a knock on the door. I dried my hands on a towel and walked over to answer it. When I opened the door, my heart stopped. Sophia was standing in the hallway. She looked terrible. Her hair, which had always been so perfectly styled, was dull and unkempt. Her face was pale and gaunt, as if she hadn't been eating properly. She was wearing a cheap sweater and jeans, a far cry from the designer gown she used to favor. Her eyes were red and swollen, and I could see that she had been crying. She looked nothing like the confident, untouchable woman who had humiliated me 5 months ago. "Can I come in?" she asked. Her voice was small and shaky. Gone was the sharp, mocking tone I remembered. This was a broken woman, standing in front of me, asking for something I wasn't sure I could give. "What do you want, Sophia?" I asked. I didn't step aside. I didn't invite her in. I just stood there, blocking the doorway, my arms crossed over my chest. "I want to talk," she said. "Please, just give me 5 minutes. You owe me that." I almost laughed. "I don't owe you anything. Not a single thing." She flinched as if I had slapped her. "You're right. You're absolutely right. I'm the one who owes you. I owe you an apology. I owe you an explanation. I owe you so much more than I can ever give. But please, just let me try. Let me tell you how sorry I am. And then if you want me to leave, I'll leave. I won't bother you again." I hesitated. Every instinct told me to close the door in her face, to walk away, to protect myself from any more pain. But there was a small part of me, the part that had once loved her, that wanted to hear what she had to say. Not because I was thinking of taking her back, not because I still had feelings for her, but because I needed closure. I needed to look her in the eye and tell her that she hadn't broken me, that I had survived, that I was stronger than she would ever be. I stepped aside and let her in. She walked into my apartment and looked around. Her eyes lingered on the furniture, the artwork on the walls, the small touches that made the place feel like home. "This is nice," she said quietly. "You've made it nice." "Thank you," I said. I didn't offer her a seat. I didn't offer her anything. I just stood there, waiting. She turned to face me. Her lower lip was trembling. "I know you hate me, and I don't blame you. I hate myself too. What I did to you was unforgivable. I was cruel. I was selfish. I was a monster." "You were," I agreed. Tears welled up in her eyes. "I've lost everything. My job, my family, my friends, my reputation. I'm living in a studio apartment that smells like mold, and I can barely afford to eat. My father won't even return my calls. My mother told me I'm dead to her, and it's all my own fault. I did this to myself. I didn't say anything. I just watched her. I came here to beg you," she continued, her voice cracking. "I know I don't deserve it. I know you have no reason to help me, but I have nowhere else to go, no one else to turn to. Please, please take me back. I'll do anything. I'll be whatever you want me to be. I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. Just please don't turn me away." The words hung in the air between us. I looked at her, this woman who had once been the center of my world, who had made me feel like the luckiest man alive, who had then crushed me under her heel and laughed while I bled. And I felt nothing. No anger, no pity, no love, just a vast, empty silence where my feelings used to be. "Sophia," I said slowly, "do you remember what you said to me that night? In front of everyone." She nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I remember every word. I've replayed it in my head 1,000 times. I was horrible. I was. You said, you seriously expected I'd say yes? And then you laughed. And then you walked away while people clapped for you." She sobbed. "I know. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And now you're here," I continued, 5 months later, begging me to take you back. Not because you love me. Not because you've had some great realization about how wonderful I am. But because you lost everything. Because you have nothing left. And you think I'm your safety net. Your backup plan. The man who will take you in because he's too weak to say no. No, That's not, she started. Let me finish, I said, and my voice was harder than I had intended. She fell silent. I loved you, I said. I really loved you. I would have given you anything. I would have worked 3 jobs to make you happy. I would have sold my car, my furniture, my soul. All you had to do was love me back. But you didn't. You never did. You saw me as a stepping stone, a placeholder until something better came along. And when you thought you had found something better, you threw me away like garbage. Sophia was crying openly now, her shoulders shaking with the force of her sobs. I spent 3 months in therapy because of you, I said. 3 months trying to convince myself that I wasn't worthless, that I wasn't a joke, that I deserved to be happy. And do you know what I learned? I learned that I deserve someone who loves me for who I am. Not for my money, not for my connections, not for what I can do for them, but for me. Just me. She reached out to touch my arm. I can be that person. I've changed. I swear I've changed. I stepped back, out of her reach. Have you? Or are you just saying that because you're desperate? Because if I took you back, and then someone else came along who could give you the lifestyle you want, would you stay? Or would you do the same thing all over again? I would stay, she whispered. I would never hurt you again. How can I believe that? I asked. You lied to me for a year. You cheated on me. You humiliated me in front of hundreds of people. Trust isn't something you can just ask for. It's something you have to earn. And you've done nothing to earn it. She dropped her hand and looked down at the floor. So that's it. You're just going to turn me away? After everything we had? I shook my head slowly. Everything we had was a lie. You made sure of that. And I'm not going to let you back into my life just so you can destroy it again. Please, she begged. I have nowhere else to go. I'll sleep on the couch. I'll cook for you. I'll clean. I'll do anything. Just don't make me go back to that apartment. I can't stand being alone anymore. Her words should have moved me. Hearing her so broken, so desperate, should have awakened some spark of compassion in my heart. But all I felt was exhaustion. I was tired of being her victim. Tired of letting her control my emotions. Tired of giving her power over me. No, I said firmly. You need to leave. Sophia looked up at me, her eyes wide with disbelief. You're really going to do this? You're really going to kick me out? I'm not kicking you out. I'm asking you to leave my home. There's a difference. But I love you, she said, and even as she said it, I could hear the lie in her voice. Not because she was intentionally deceiving me, but because she had convinced herself that it was true. In her mind, needing someone was the same as loving them. But it wasn't. It had never been. No, you don't, I said gently. You need me. There's a difference. And I'm not going to let you use me anymore. She stood there for a long moment, her chest heaving with sobs. Then, slowly, she turned and walked toward the door. She paused with her hand on the knob and looked back at me one last time. You'll regret this, she said. One day, you'll be old and alone, and you'll think about this moment, and you'll regret not giving me a second chance. I shook my head. No, I won't. What I would regret is letting you back into my life. That's the only regret I would have. She opened the door and stepped into the hallway. Then she was gone, and I was alone in my apartment, with nothing but the sound of my own heartbeat in my ears. I walked over to the window and watched her walk down the street. She was moving slowly, her shoulders hunched, her head down. She looked so small, so fragile. For a moment, I felt a pang of something. Sympathy, maybe, or guilt. It was hard to tell. But then I remembered the ballroom, the spotlight, the applause, and I knew I had made the right choice. I closed the blinds and went back to washing the dishes. The water was hot, almost too hot, and I welcomed the sting against my skin. It grounded me in the present, reminded me that I was alive and whole and free. I had survived Sophia. Not just survived, thrived. I had a good job, good friends, a good life. I didn't need her dragging me back into the darkness. Over the next few months, I continued to build my life. The senior analyst position turned out to be everything I had hoped for and more. I was good at my job, and people noticed. Mr. Henderson started talking about making me a manager within the next year. My coworkers respected me, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I belonged somewhere. I also started dating again. It wasn't easy. The idea of opening my heart to someone new was terrifying. What if they turned out to be another Sophia? What if I was just a magnet for toxic people? My therapist, Dr. Ellis, helped me work through those fears. Not everyone is like her, she said. You just have to learn to trust your instincts again, and to set boundaries. Healthy relationships are built on mutual respect and honest communication. You know what that looks like now. You just have to be willing to look for it. I started small. Coffee dates. Walks in the park. Nothing serious. Nothing that required a lot of emotional investment. I met a few nice women, but there were no sparks. I wasn't in a hurry. I had learned that being alone was better than being with the wrong person. And for the first time in my life, I was actually comfortable with being alone. I liked my own company. I liked the peace and quiet. I liked not having to walk on eggshells around someone else's moods. 6 months after Sophia's visit, I got a letter in the mail. It was from her. The envelope was plain white, with no return address, but I recognized her handwriting on the front. I almost threw it away. Part of me wanted to, but curiosity got the better of me, and I opened it. The letter was long, 4 pages of cramped handwriting on lined paper. She apologized again, more elaborately this time. She told me about her childhood, about the pressure her parents had put on her to marry well, about the fear of being a disappointment. She admitted that she had used me, that she had never loved me the way I deserved, that she was broken in ways she hadn't understood. She said she was in therapy now, trying to fix herself. She said she didn't expect me to forgive her, but she wanted me to know that she was sorry. Truly sorry. Not because she wanted something from me, but because she had finally realized how much pain she had caused. I read the letter 3 times. Then I folded it up and put it in the same drawer where I kept the ring. They belonged together, I thought. 2 reminders of a chapter in my life that was closed. I didn't respond to the letter. I didn't call her. I didn't send a message through Chloe. I just let it be. Closure, I had learned, wasn't something someone else gave you. It was something you gave yourself. And I had already given it to myself, one day at a time, one small victory at a time. A year after the proposal, I was promoted to manager. I moved into a nicer apartment, one with a view of the city skyline. I bought a new car, a sleek black sedan that made me feel like I had finally arrived. I traveled to places I had always wanted to see, the mountains of Colorado, the beaches of Florida, the streets of New York City. I lived my life on my own terms, and it felt good. I never forgot Sophia. I don't think I ever will. She was a part of my story, a chapter that had taught me more about myself than any other. But she was no longer the main character. I was. And I was writing my own ending. 2 years after the proposal, I met someone new. Her name was Olivia. She was a graphic designer with a laugh that sounded like wind chimes and a smile that could light up a room. We met at a coffee shop. Ironic, considering that was where I had met Sophia, and we talked for 3 hours without realizing how much time had passed. She was smart, kind, and refreshingly honest. She didn't play games. She didn't test me. She just was who she was, and she let me be who I was. Our relationship moved slowly. Neither of us was in a hurry. We dated for a year before I introduced her to my family. We dated for another year before we moved in together. And when I finally proposed to her, on a quiet beach at sunset with no cameras and no crowds, she said yes without hesitation. She cried happy tears and threw her arms around my neck and told me she loved me. And I believed her. Not because I was blind or naive, but because she had earned my trust. Day by day, small gesture by small gesture, she had shown me, through her actions, that I mattered to her, that I was not a placeholder, that I was the one she chose. We got married 6 months later. It was a small ceremony, just family and close friends. Elena was my best woman. Marcus was the officiant. Olivia wore a simple white dress that made her look like an angel. And when we kissed at the altar, I felt a joy so pure and so profound that it made everything I had been through worth it. The pain, the humiliation, the long nights of crying myself to sleep, it had all led me here, to this moment, to this woman, to this life. Sophia, I heard, eventually got back on her feet. She found a job at a small marketing firm and started rebuilding her relationship with her parents. She never married, at least not as far as I know. I didn't keep tabs on her. I didn't need to. She was no longer my concern. The ring from that first proposal stayed in my sock drawer for years. Eventually, I sold it and donated the money to a charity that helps victims of emotional abuse. It felt like the right thing to do, turning something that had once symbolized so much pain into something that could help others heal. The ring was gone, but the lesson remained. I had learned to value myself. I had learned that love is not supposed to hurt. I had learned that saying no to someone who doesn't respect you is an act of self-respect, not cruelty. And I had learned that sometimes, the best revenge is not revenge at all. It is living well. It is finding happiness on your own terms. It is looking back at the person who broke you and feeling not anger, not sadness, but a quiet, peaceful indifference. That, more than anything, is how you win. So if you're out there and you're going through something similar, if someone you loved has hurt you, humiliated you, made you feel like you weren't enough, please know that it gets better. It takes time. It takes work. It takes a willingness to feel the pain and then let it go. But it gets better. You will heal. You will find your footing again. And one day, you will look back at this moment and realize that it did not break you. It made you. Thank you for listening to my story. If it touched you, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Your support means the world to us. And remember, you are worthy of love. You are worthy of respect. Never settle for less.